On behalf of the Russian International Affairs Council and the Korea Foundation, we are recording the outcome of the first working group meeting for the Next Generation Policy Experts Network between Russia and Korea. The first meeting dealt with strategic dynamics in the Asia Pacific and the opportunities for cooperation between Russia and Korea. And we would kindly ask Russian and Korean participants to briefly summarize the most interesting outcomes and ideas of the discussion that we had on April 20 with Russian and Korean participants on the issues of strategic stability and China, US, and Russia and Korea in Asia Pacific. And with that, I'm happy to give floor for short remarks to Dr. Ekaterina Koldunova, Acting Director of the ASEAN Centre and Assistant Professor at the Department of Asian and African Studies at MGIMO University. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ksenia. I think that we had a very productive discussion, and it's good to have this context going on despite all the disruptances and pandemic, which unfortunately is still with us. I think that there were several lines where we do very much intersect with our South Korean counterparts, and where we should, I think, dig into to find even better understanding at the expert to expert level, specifically with the purpose of this next generation program. One of the important takeaways which I would suggest is looking at the idea of South Korea actually being one of the keys for Russian strategic keeping Russian strategic autonomy in the Asia Pacific, and vice versa. Russia is one of the keys for South Korea to establishing peace and cooperative approach to the problems on the Korean Peninsula. As our discussion has demonstrated, there are different lines of prospective cooperation between Russia and South Korea. There are possible multilateral frameworks starting from trilateral cooperation involving Japan, for example, and moving towards broader frameworks, including probably reviving multilateral approach to the Korean Peninsula problem and North Korea nuclear issue. But there were also other questions and concerns raised, including the possibilities of defense discussions and defense cooperation, and wider agenda as highlighted by our South Korean colleagues. Thank you, and I hope that this dialogue will continue.
Thank you so much, Ekaterina Valerina, for your short remarks, and I'm happy to give floor to Professor Sangtu Ko from Yonsei University for the outcome remarks. Please, Professor Ko, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I'm pleased to have today a very constructive discussion today, and I think we have shared many opinions on the peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula and surrounding the regions. And I have proposed a peace coalition between South Korea and Russia because Korean Peninsula has been always front line between continental power and maritime power. So the current competition between China and Russia is the revival of the confrontation between continental power and maritime power. So in this urgent situation, South Korea tried to solve the confrontation. And in this sense, the support of the Russian side to the South Korean effort is very important and significant. So in this sense, the peace coalition between Korea, South Korea, and Russia can be a good breakthrough under the current competition between China and Russia. And this peace coalition can give some advantage not only South Korea, but also to Russia. So in this sense, I hope the cooperation and collaboration between Korea and Russia can not only contribute to the peace and stability in the region, but also the bilateral interest.
Thank you so much, Professor Kaur, for summarizing your ideas brought forth during the discussion. And I'm happy to give floor to Anastasia Pyatachkova, Deputy Head of the Asia Pacific Department Center for Comprehensive European and International Studies, School of Economics. Please, Anastasia, the floor for the takeaways from the discussion and final remarks is yours.
Ksenia, thank you very much for invitation and for I would also like to express my gratitude to all the participants for such a brilliant and fruitful discussion. I've learned a lot, and I think that this could bring us to very interesting results in the future. I would like to outline several statements that I think are important in this regard. So first of all, along with ongoing economic decline that we see in Asia-Pacific region, we also see the rise of military expenditures in many countries, in China, South Korea, and even Japan. And in this regard, Sino-US competition, which remains one of the major tendencies in the region, would be also very influential for regional development. And we also should pay much attention for the facts that would determine its further development. And Sino American cooperation is developing in two different dimensions. On the one hand, we see that interdependence is ongoing, and on the other, we see decoupling tendencies. During our discussion, we've brought up the issue of balancing between China and the United States, which would be relevant for many Asia-Pacific countries. And we also have discussed this issue in South Korean regards. I believe that this could be really important to take this into account in terms of Russian-Korean cooperation as well, because this would be an opportunity for a further diversification of international ties between Russia and South Korea, and we should also strengthen our cooperation and find new points for our policy agenda. Moreover, we could focus not only on traditional spheres of cooperation, such as energy cooperation, investment or technologies, but also look at new fields in non-traditional spheres, for instance, food security, disaster management, and other fields. And it also seems that cooperation in culture and education could also bring much benefit for us. As for regional dimension, Russia and Korea have huge perspectives in Russian Far East and Arctics. At least we could focus on their further development. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anastasia, and I would like to thank our colleagues from Korea Foundation, Russian and Korean participants, and the audience who has watched this short outcome video, the first working group meeting at the Next Generation Policy Experts Network, organized by Russian International Affairs Council and the Korea Foundation, aimed at bringing closer together Russian and Korean academic communities, especially the next generation one, in order to promote mutual understanding. Please follow our projects on Korea and the outcomes of the coming working meetings on the way. Thank you so much.